Thank you, Linda. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to EDM 105, Customer Story, Implementing Laserfiche and Public Portal. As Linda mentioned, my name is Katie Burke. I work on the marketing team at Laserfiche with all of our government customers. Before we get started, I wanted to take a few minutes to do a bit of housekeeping. We are going to be recording today's session, and so as a result, we want to capture, the whole session. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, and I'll go ahead and deliver a mic to you so that we can be sure you're heard in the recording. So now that we've taken care of the logistics, it's my honor and privilege to introduce today's speakers, Rob Houston, Faz Cooper, and Ivan Juarez from the City of Newport Beach. Rob is the assistant to the city manager and IT manager. Faz is a senior IT analyst, and Ivan serves as an IT specialist. And this is the team that has led the city's Laserfiche implementation. Like many city governments, the City of Newport Beach faced some tough budget cuts in the latest economic downturn. And they met this challenge by refreshing to legacy technology, including their previous information management system. So today, this team is going to share their process and best practices of migrating from a legacy information management system to Laserfiche, and how they set up a public portal to save over $500,000 and increase citizen satisfaction. Please join me in welcoming today's presenters.
All right, well, thank you, Katie. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out to check out this session. We're, as mentioned, Ivan, Faz, and myself, Rob, are from the City of Newport Beach, and we've had a Laserfiche story we wanted to share with you. Basically, if you've heard of Newport Beach, you spin in some shows. You've got the beach, you got the water, you got the OC show that was on years ago. There's a lot of rich people there. There's also crazy people if you've seen Arrested Development. So we have that kind of span of people there. But it's an interesting place. It's certainly a place that there's affluence. There's an expectation that service be very high and that there be current technology, current everything there. And as a city, we had a very old city hall, over 60 years old technology. This is 3 years ago, and needed to deal with that because there was an expectation that we could do better at the City of Newport Beach. And our council had said, let's get a brand new state-of-the-art city hall. So we just moved in April. It's very fancy and nice, and so people walk in there, they expect this new higher level of city government. With that came our needing to refresh our technology, which we've been working on, and then we also had to get our documents in order and get our information organized to fit this new image. So as has already been mentioned, we've got the three of us to tell the story. And what is that story? Here's what we're going to cover today. We've got where we were, 2010, covering the overall story, what we did, but focusing on two key implementation success stories to give you an example of some case studies. Highlights of the overall scope of how we integrated a lot of our departments, the lessons we've learned, and then a chance for questions. So that's where we're going to go. So let me just start off with giving you the history of 2010. We had an old system, document imaging system called Alchemy. It was good in its day, but it was over 9 years old by the time we got to 2010, I think, and it had a lot of struggles. It wasn't modern. We had corrupt file problems. It was crashing all the time. The interface was very poor, very non-intuitive, so we just had a lot of problems using that system, getting buy-in to use it. So that was one of our struggles. As a result of that, if anyone has ever seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, at the end of the movie, there's the great treasure they find. They store it into this box. They send it into the warehouse, off into some lost corner, and it never gets found again. That was kind of like our filing systems at our city. We had buckets of files in all different places. Because people couldn't use the software, the current software we had, they were avoiding it, or they'd put it in there, they couldn't pull it out, they couldn't find where it was. or it'd be in an Access database, or it would be on someone's shared drive, or it'd be on their file paper system. So very confusing filing system. We also had just a general confusion for the public, a lot of fog. We didn't have that transparent, kind of buzzwords that are out there in the world now that the public needs to have government that's transparent. Well, there was inability to find a lot of documents easily. So if the public was trying to find something, they'd try to find it on our web or try to search our systems. They couldn't find it. Then they'd talk to staff. We'd be bumbling. Well, maybe it's with this department. Maybe you should try there. Did Bill have that? No, I think it's over in Sam's, area. So we looked like we're trying to hide something, which we weren't, but it wasn't a good feeling. And then third of all, just overall redundancy. As this sign says, this office will not tolerate redundancy in this office. It sort of felt that way. We had the same file or document would be in 5 different places. There might be some slightly different versions. So we really were redundant. We had to fix this. So that led us to a search for something better. So we wanted a document imaging system that improved our system. So we made a list of criteria that could deal with all these issues, including better transparency, stability. We didn't want to have to reset the system every single day. Enhanced security. We didn't know who was in our files or who should be. We didn't have a way to block out the right people looking at things. We wanted one easy-to-search database for all city documents, both for internal searches and then really for the public. And in addition, we wanted to take the document imaging system to the next level and have automated workflows, trying to get efficiencies that way. So we did an RFP for document imaging software. We were open to any of the products that were out there. We ended up having some great bids come in for Laserfiche as a product, and ended up picking that after a long and arduous process. We actually had our VAR with Laserfiche AMI ended up winning. We put them through their paces. There actually a couple of them are sitting in the audience right here. They did a good job. So we picked Laserfiche, worked with our VAR, and began the journey of installing this project. So with that, I'm going to pass it over so you can get some specifics of how this went from Faz and Ivan.
So my name is Faz Cooper. So a year ago, pretty much the same time in January, I was here in Empower 2013, learning how to do workflow, learning how to do quick field. A year and a half has gone by. I have a success story to share with you. This success story is within Community Development Department in the permitting area. So if you want to see what life was like for us a year and a half ago, how we operate. So as a city, we issue permits every day, and we're talking about volume. January of 2014 alone, we issued about 583 permits. That's a lot. 2013, we issued about 13,849 permits. So we're talking about volume. We're talking about not just permit alone, the support document that comes with the permit. So how we did in the past is not very efficient. So let's take a look. This is before Laserfiche. So permits that we're talking about, the inspector would go out, did his inspection. Once it become final, he sign off on the back of permits. He bring all the paperwork to our record specialist. His name is Lanny. So he put in on Lanny's desk. Well, what did Lanny do with that? Permits and the backup document. He compiled them as a list in Excel spreadsheet so he knows how many permits he received from the inspector. And then next, he sent out to the scanning company, right? Well, I won't tell you how long it takes for that paperwork to come back to us. So I'll let you try, guess. Later, when he received the CD that has all the TIFF files or PDF back from the scanning company, he has to verify. He wants to make sure that however many he sent to the company, he gets back, including the support document. And then he import to our legacy system, Alchemy. And then he entered metadata. That is like 5 steps that we did in the past. Anyone want to take a pick how long it takes us or took us in the past before Laserfiche? Pick number. You're very close. 2 to 4 weeks turnaround time. 2 to 4 weeks talking about transparency. Did we have it? Not really. Were we efficient? No. 5 steps to get us to show permit for public, to be able to have the public to search for the permit, for their own permit. That's not very good, right? So let's take a look at Lanny. Well, that was him. That was him a year and a half ago. And the paperwork in front of him, that's how many he could handle. Not a lot, right? It's not very efficient. We weren't operating very efficiently back then. And now with Laserfiche. So let's take a look. Final permit, the very same final permit. But we did an improvement on this permit. If you notice, here, we put the barcode in the front. It has a permit number that links to our permitting system, and it also handles as a document breaker. So we don't have to have a page breaker to know that, oh, this is the next document, this is the next permit. So then he would do the permit on the top, including the support documents, stack them all up when he's ready, walk to his scanner, scan it, walk away. As soon as it's done, there you go. It's available to public, right? Right then, right there. Quick and easy, 1 step. So how long, question? Right, we utilize quick field and workflow to do all of this right here after it scans. So now, how long do you think it takes? There you go. Less than a minute. Seriously, less than a minute compared to 2 to 4 weeks that we had in the past. As soon as it's scanned, it goes to Laserfiche. It's available to public right then, right there. Take a look at Lanny now. Pretty happy, right? Well, look at the paperwork he can handle. That's a lot. That's a lot that he can go through in a day compared to what he had in the past. Talking about government being efficient, we have it there. So just to recap what I mentioned, compare between the legacy system with Laserfiche. Number of steps, we had 5 compared to 1. That's pretty darn good. Time, it takes 2 to 4 weeks, and now just less than a minute. Cost, it costs us 25 cents per page. And if you do the math, we have a lot of permit each year and a supporting document. Lanny was telling me each week, every 2 weeks, he sent about 1,000 pages to the scanning company. Do the math, it's $250 every 2 weeks, 26 times a year. That's $6,500 right there. Do we want to pay that anymore? No. So right now, it's zero cost to us. So gaps and opportunity in the legacy system. Like I said, it takes up to 4 weeks. And it costs money and time. It's unreliable system. The old legacy system, we reboot almost every day. I don't even call it security in the legacy system. There's not really a security there. It's a lot of manual process, and they had to do a data entry that caused data error too. You key in wrong, you can't search. That's bad. What's the point? So with the gaps for Laserfiche, I have to admit we're not quite 100% paperless. Inspectors still have to print out the permit with the backup document, hand it to Lanny, but we want to improve that area. We want it to be digital. We don't want paper anymore. No, we just print it out from our permitting system. We don't even have Laserfiche form right now. I think so. We're gonna look in the future. We want to utilize all the automation that we can have. Oh, so they don't need to print out anymore? Oh, that's great. Then I can talk to you at the end of the session. Maybe I can pick up your brain. That would be great. Thank you. So with our Laserfiche, we know it's not a plug-and-play system. We need people like me and Ivan to do the back end, to do the quick fill, to do the workflow. And it also requires administration. That we all know. So the benefit that we receive in the old legacy system, we have somewhat, we can get rid of some paper, we can organize document certain way, yeah, but not, yeah, that's not the greatest. We have ability to search when the system is up. Of course, we can search. But with Laserfiche, quick turnaround, less than a minute, permits is up to public. High transparency, enhanced security, no manual process, no data entry required. Of course, we increase our customer service, save time and money, improve document sharing between departments, and accurate information. So next slide, let's take a look at what it looks like in a public portal. So if you aren't interested in the permit that issued in Balboa Street, all you have to do to go to our public portal, plug in Balboa under the street name, hit search, and here's everything related to Balboa Street regarding to permits. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to hand this to Ivan. He's going to tell us a success story.
Thank you, Faz. Hi, my name is Ivan. I worked along with Faz. I was in charge of working with the city clerk department. And one big area that they had an issue with was contracts. On their old system with contracts, what they had to do, they would get a contract, they would get the paper. Before they can do any entering of the information, they actually had an access database. This was where they entered their metadata. They created their, unbeknownst to myself, when I took over this project, they had this database for years. They had legacy records, they had their tables, their fields were not 100% correct, and only one person knew how to actually use it correctly. So it really wasn't shared that well between the same department. So they would enter the data, and then they would go to another computer that had a scanner. They would sit there and scan their contracts. They would convert their contracts to a PDF document. And once it's converted in a PDF document, they would actually import it into Alchemy. So now they had a record in Alchemy and they had an access database. Once again, they would go into the Alchemy database and enter more metadata. So now we have two locations where they enter data. One, they would use Access in order to search what record they wanted. Then they would go to Alchemy to pull out the file. Because in Alchemy, we had no OCR, we had no search functions. There was no way for us to grab that data. Anybody want to take a guess how long it takes for just one contract for the user to go from beginning to end? Luckily, they're all internal since we're scanning. It would take them 50 minutes per one record, just to fill in one record all the way across. Then when we took the time and started with Laserfiche, they would grab that same contract. We started using barcoding with these two. We just created a generic cover sheet that displayed the document. It had 3 barcodes on it. It had document, the department, and the type of template that we use called contracts. They would go to to a copier or a scanner, put in the barcode, scan the documents, and walk away. If they had to do any other function, they'll go back to their desk, and automatically would go to Laserfiche. All they had to do at this point, since we had no connectivity to a database to grab any data, they would just go there and enter the contract number, whatever metadata that they wanted for that contract, enter it, and it goes into the system. So now they have one location, one way to look up metadata, so there's no double data entry. Any guess how long this takes now the user? It's about 3 minutes per record, because they wanted to capture a lot of data. We're still looking at a way to maybe in the future automate it, where we can tap into a database to grab all this data information. Currently, this is the way we have it for now. So that's kind of what we're going with. Yes? Yes, with QuickFields, we don't have that plugin. So we have it. We use it with Workflow, because I know we could do it in QuickFields for the real-time lookup, but we didn't buy that actual piece. We decided to use that piece in the workflow. So we did buy Zone OCR. What we were looking into is maybe using Zone OCR to read the front sheet of the first page, but being that the contract number moves around on the page, it's really hard to use Zone OCR. Currently, the way our contracts are, maybe in the future, we thought about looking into buying the real lookup piece, but we figured since Workflow already includes it, we used it that way. Yes, they're pretty much C dash and the 4 numbers. Oh, can you repeat the question? Oh, you want me to repeat the question? Um, what he was asking if the contract number was in a distinct number format, kind of like a social security number, where it's 3 numbers dash, 2 numbers dash, 3 numbers. And yes, our contract numbers are usually in the middle of the page, the top of the page, with the C dash and 4 numbers. We haven't, since we wanted to get them in the system, at least get them going, we haven't explored that avenue because we wanted to get a whole city getting first into Laserfiche, getting used to the process, and eventually going back and re-looking at our process and reinventing the wheel. Like with the FAS's presentation, the permits, that was a second iteration of us looking at a permits record. The original way, we didn't we used the barcode cover sheet. This that was a really long question to repeat. So pretty much what I'll make it a shorter question. What he's was asking was, what he was saying is pretty much you can put a bigger zone and tell it to look for specific pattern within the pattern matching in quick fields, and saying if it doesn't have this first C dash, it's not the right pattern. So yeah, I seen that. We just have so many abundance of data, and we started with just 2 of us doing the whole city. Now we actually included 2 more people doing workflow development. So that's why there's things we can innovate. We just haven't gotten to that point. Okay, thank you. Now I'm gonna go just a kind of recap on the system. The legacy system took 4 steps. The new system right now takes 2. We eventually want to try to get it down to 1, where everything can be automated. The gaps and opportunity, we had double data entry, had an Access database, and we had Alchemy data. There were 2 separate systems. It cost money and time because they can only do so many records. And like I said, poor security, manual process. We're not paperless because they need to print a contract because they need a wet signature. We still haven't gotten to the point of doing electronic signatures yet. It's up to the city attorney's office. It's not plug and play. It requires administration. The benefit is we did get rid of paper because people were keeping different contracts in different locations. They were scanning some and then still keeping the paper just because the system would crash. Now I'd have to rebuild the database. Sometimes the files were not accessible, so people started getting nervous and just started holding on to paper. The ability to organize the documents they would just drop it into a big bucket. There was no organization. And the ability to search, like Faz had mentioned, it was hit and miss. They searched more on Access and then just try to look for the name of the file. That was it. We had better quick turnaround on the new system, centralized metadata, so now they had better ways of searching for documents. And here's how our search portal looks. It's on WebLink. Pretty much, I allow wildcards onto different fields. So if they enter the contract number, they think it has a 542, it'll bring up any contract that has a 542 number, if it's in the front, the middle, or the end. So it just gives them some leverage for them to put as little or as much information as they think they know, and then start using more fields to narrow down their search. With that, I'll hand it over to Rob.
Thank you, Ivan. So that's an example of just 2 of the many projects that we have been working on in the city. And as Ivan alluded to, there's so much volume, and it's been fun to watch the beginning of this document imaging project, where most departments, a few of them, the paper-intensive ones, the permitting folks and city clerk's office, they were kind of excited and engaged, but so many of the other departments just couldn't see any use of how this is going to affect them at all. But we've really had some luck in getting some energy and actually getting too much engagement. We have every department now clamoring for help. And so as Ivan said, it's hard to keep up. We're trying to spread our resources around, helping all departments a bit. So we've got a list of just the different projects we've worked on in the different departments. So we're covering human resources, finance, city manager's office, fire department, community development, which is building and planning, as well as city clerks so far. So it's been quite a successful infection, I guess, of the rest of the city to say there's a use for this in their worlds. With that, I thought we'll just highlight a couple more of these projects just to give you an idea of some key themes here where we're using the tool to both get rid of paper, so where we had filing cabinets and searching through. We've got an example of that. And we've got another example, which I think is a real empowering, or to use a phrase of this day, way to coordinate departments so that we start getting some real efficiencies where we had a lot of silos of information and knowledge, and we've got an example of where we're starting to pool the data together in a way that really empowers the main person we're trying to help here is the public in that public portal to help them be able to cut through all that fog and find the information. So with that, I'll hand it over for an example from our city clerk and planning department.
We had one template called resolutions and ordinances. Originally, when we made this template, it was for city clerk department. But then we decided to also make a document type inside of this template that also applied to community development. So when we first originally did this, there were two separate departments. We didn't see the vision of connecting them until I think 7 months into or after into the system. So the old way, so if a user came in and wanted to search for a record, he would go to the city clerk, ask them for a resolution, and then they would pull the records. And they said, hey, I would need also a resolution from community development. Oh, you got to go to the community development department. So then the user would have to walk over, go to community development, and search for their records. So in some instance, the city clerk had some of the records of community development and vice versa. Like Rob had mentioned earlier, there could be different versions. So nobody knew who had the actual correct version. So it was another hit and miss of, okay, well, let's figure out the order of these documents. Who has what? That leads us back to our picture. We had all these different silos, all these different locations. Some were in databases, some were in network shares, some were just in their cabinet on their file folder. Come back to the new system. Our new way now, what we did is we removed that line and connected both searches. So now the user can walk to either department and ask for those same records. But the key thing that we realized, and it was actually with talking with the user in community development, said he wanted a way to search both records. So then me and Faz were like, well, we knew that through metadata, if since they're already sharing one template, we added a new field just called project. So the project field is on that template that connects all their documents. The minute they put in the PA number of that project, it's going to return all the records from both departments. You can see that in this little reference window, you have city clerk, and you have community development. So now all their documents, even though they're in different locations, are sitting in one quick search window where the user can just walk over to city clerk, community development, and get all the records on that specific project without worrying that the data is in two different it's the wrong version. Oh, with that was the end of on that presentation on how to do searching. You have a question?
So question is that was like a completely separate repository managed by two separate departments with a security?
Yes. Depending on the records, I set up the security. All these are public access records. I said, okay, the public can search these records. On the repository on the folders, I set up the security to allow everyone to search these folders. The template is shared by both departments, but they can only enter data on their own documents. So the way it was tasked on the city clerk and community development, they met together. So when the city clerk enters their records, on their form on the very top, they started adding the PA number. So as a form of them working together now, city clerk enters the PA number, and so does community development. So they don't do double work. So if they have a record that they have and they see a PA number, they enter the data. So that's how we share the documents. Security is set up that everyone can access these records from the outside.
So just a one follow-up question. So when you define for two different departments, is there like a naming conventions or that convention different for community CDD department compared to the other department, ordinance department?
No, they pick their, as far as with the file name you see, they pick their own naming convention. Where what we focus on is that the project, the field, the data is entered the same way, like P 2007-151. That's all consistent. How they name their files, since I work with city clerk and they name them one way, community development names it another way. They don't have to decide to name it identically the same. By just using this field, we're able to pull all the records regardless of how the files are named. This is just one metadata field. I think this template has about 8 fields. So this is just one that they share.
How did it work adding the PA number to the older? I understand the day forward part, but on the older documents, how did that work and who did that?
Since community development wanted this a little more, they actually had one of their staff members go back, and they're actually catching up because there's no easy way of doing it, because the PA number exists on these documents, but it's like on page 3, on page 5, on page 7. On the news, going forward, they're adding it on the first page. But yes, it's right now it's just a manual data entry of trying to catch up to all the documents. All right. Now I want to pass it over to Faz.
So hi again. The next story I want to share with you is cash receipt. So we have a guy who oversees all the cash receipt at the city. His name is Brian, and often in time he would prompt with question, did we receive this payment in 2005? Not sure. So this is what he did. He would go then dig into his file cabinet so that he could answer his boss whether we received that certain payment. He would dig and dig and dig. 10 minutes after, okay, may or may not find it, but hopefully he would find it, right? So that's before Laserfiche. We don't like that solution anymore. So what we did for him, we have him scan all his receipt with all the backup paperwork with that payment and put in Laserfiche. We use Zone OCR in Quick Field, read the receipt number, look up in our ERP system, populate all the metadata. It could be receipt date, payer name, receipt amount, whatever information that relevant to that receipt number, that then he can search whatever question he has from his finance director. Life is good, 5 to 10 seconds. Awesome, right? He can get back to work. So this is his search screen. He can search by his receipt number. The file name is by the receipt number. This is all his backup document. And he can search by anything that we have in our system. So that's cash receipt success story. Oh, I'm going to hand this over as we're going to cover the tool and devices that we use to be successful in what we do today.
So pretty much we went to a combination of 2 devices depending on each department. We bought scanners. For some departments, use a high volume scanner like we had showed in the previous slides because they just have a high volume of documents. We combined our copiers where most people send their documents from. They scan it there, it goes to a network share, and then Quick Field's agent picks up that document and routes it into Laserfiche, and our workflow takes over. And that's where our tools come in. We use Quick Fields on the computers that have the actual scanner, so they see the session themselves. We use Quick Field's agent for pretty much, I think, 80% of most of our jobs, because they go walk up to the copier, we put a Laserfiche button on there, and it scans with the barcode, and it goes to a folder, and Quick Field's agent picks up that document. Like I said, we use barcode, we use Zone OCR, and we leverage a lot with workflows to route all our documents.
All of the documents that you had in Alchemy before you purchased Laserfiche, how are you handling those documents? Did you guys use a conversion to convert those documents from Alchemy to Laserfiche, or you print them and scan them in, or
No, we actually used another software called Cygen to do the conversion because we went from PDF to TIFF.
Yeah.
So we converted all our documents. We captured some metadata because there were some a little bit to grab, and we used the help of another person in the IT department named Avery. We were able to capture their folder structure and grab that as data fields and move it into. It was a painful process because we had a lot of bad data. I mean, one database maybe had like 10 fields. We can only really use 3 because the data was so bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did. It was a slow, probably 8 months process for just converting and getting that old document into Laserfiche. So there was a lot of catching up and then entering more metadata.
And I know I have a lot of questions, but this is one more question. This is my last one, I promise.
It's okay.
Before, when he asked the question, you were saying that it was a strenuous task, I think, it took a long time. I was thinking that you could probably use batch processing for, what was the last thing you presented on? I think it was something with clerks.
With the city clerk's department contracts?
Yeah. It sounded like you said it takes a long time to try to get all the documents in, going back and scanning them in. That batch processing is something that you could probably use to get the documents done in a quick amount of time, especially if you have a high volume scanner that would allow for batch processing to fill in the metadata and templates without you having to physically go back and do that.
Yeah, the reason we're doing the scanner because right now we're still trying to tinker with the quick fill session in a sense to figure out, because when we're using Zone OCR, we're seeing that it's not grabbing the numbers correctly sometimes. So they go in and edit the task to fix it right then and there.
Okay.
So we're still working out all the little issues
Okay.
because we have different size documents.
Yeah.
We have parking citations that the ticket number doesn't come out too clear, so it'll put extra dots.
Yeah.
And if we're doing a workflow with the lookup into a database, it doesn't find a record, it puts it into an unknown container saying I couldn't find any data.
Okay.
So that's why we don't want to rely on just being completely automated until we feel that
Do the right job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, and with that, I'll pass it over to Rob.
Thanks, Ivan. So that was a bunch of examples, or a few examples, and certainly we'll have a chance for a few questions just in a moment, and you can get as technical as you want. But to just look at the overall project as a recap, it was great to get the departments engaged, and I think we also were able to manage to get our council and engaged in the story we're trying to tell, and which is always good to get your council on board with something, because we were able to talk about some key things that we were able to, in a sense, market our IT department and our city as being efficient. So, I mean, a lot of cities talk about all the paper and the paperwork and the red tape, and we were able to tell a story about how much paper we saved, which I'll show you in a second, and that got a lot of traction. It's good for the environment. It was good for our mayor at the time last year to be telling that story in various events he was at. We were able to get an award from a group on innovation and being efficient. So that's a good thing to do. And then Ivan mentioned these scanners. So we took the opportunity when we moved into our new city hall in April to say we're going to go paperless as much as we can. And so we voluntold everybody that they're going to lose their office printers. And this was traumatic for some folks. But we went to a centralized printer per area. So you might have a bay the size of this area with maybe 20 offices. They're going to get one central scanner, copier, color, nice high quality, all set up so they can just print to it. But it's going to be only one device. And so we were able to get rid of, this is just some of the printers that we got rid of, over 75 for the city, which is a great savings and a great story to tell. So these are additional wins that this whole process got us and we used to leverage. Here's just some stats for the stat lovers. We started out with 332,000 documents in our old system, 8 months of moving everything over, shutting down our servers as all the conversion was happening from PDF to TIFF in the background. It worked. So we have now 365,000 documents in the new system, because more are getting added in every day, we were able to find more documents to add, and that's 3.7 million pages. And the big story on the paper is 22,000 pages a month, at least, is what we're saving. And so that was great to get traction with council and the community to show that we're being efficient. And just to show that the system's getting used. We've got just the last number of months, October, 16,000 documents added. Just last month, over 8,000. So we've got a lot of buy-in and a lot of momentum going. So with that, we wanted to hand it back over to Faz and just let you just summarize the last part of our presentation here, the lessons we've learned, some of them. Here you go.
Thank you, Rob. So lesson learned, we went through the conversion process from the old Alchemy system to Laserfiche. Of course, we have a lot of lesson to learn from this process. Number one, take the time to plan out the conversion process from your legacy system to Laserfiche. That way, when you actually implement it, it goes smoother. And then you don't have to spend too much time putting out the fire. That we learned very well. Secondly, standardize the templates and metadata field. Keep the name of the field generic so you can use them in a different template. I have a good example. At the beginning, myself and Ivan were so new to this project. We have a field, he did it first for city clerk. He has a field called document type. And I went in after, I need a field, the same thing, document type. Then I create a field called CDD document type because he already took that field name document type from me. I didn't know better. I thought I needed a document type field. But then later on, once I learned that I can use Laserfiche to share the same field and have it displayed differently depending on which template it comes from, whether it's city clerk template or CDD template. Also, with workflow too, try to standardize it so that you can reuse them over and over, regardless of what template or what workflow you're working on. Last one, to educate the end user on the benefits of the new system. Get them involved and support them as they become comfortable with the new system. I have a user, Lanny, the guy that you saw on the picture, at the beginning, he was reluctant, well, because he was so used to the Alchemy system. He loved that system. He wasn't he didn't have, the buy-in wasn't there for him. He was reluctant with Laserfiche. But once we get him to love Laserfiche, he was so enthusiastic with this system that he's willing to do the workflow himself. Imagine the end user wanting to do the workflow. Wouldn't that be great? IT doesn't have to do workflow. The end user wanting to do the workflow. I like that. I think that's great. He's even going to be here at the conference as well. You guys have anything to add on to the lesson learned?
I just think getting the end users involved was really an important part of the success of what we've done. Especially the workflow is a real powerful tool because we can just sit with them and not just talk about how we can automate their current process, but talk about how they could do it differently and get rid of steps. Because we had a lot of conversations at the beginning of, well, we have 7 steps and it goes to 4 people, so how can we scan it and have it go to 4 people? And it's like, well, using these new tools, how about it goes to 1 person? And we were able to get I think the end users more engaged and see the benefits because we sat with them and talked with them through and tried to figure out what's the end goal you're trying to get to. And so I just would say that's a lesson we learned. With that, I think that concludes our presentation, and we've had some questions, but feel free to ask a lot more. I'm going to give the mic over to Faz and Ivan for the technical stuff. Over there?
I work for county government, and I am doing the whole implementation myself. Is this on? Okay. So my first question is, right now I'm also migrating a whole bunch of documents of a document management system, a document repository that we've had for, 10 years. It was a gigantic mess when we hired a third party to do it, so I'm kind of redoing it. It's taking me a really long time. Resource-wise, I have 3 servers for each QuickFields workflow and the application server. Did you guys notice that? How long did that take? I mean, just getting the documents into Laserfiche.
What we did, since we had a legacy system, we first extract all the documents, the PDFs, out of the system, and then built another server. We used a program called Asigen. I installed it on there. I ran that system to convert all those files to TIFF. And through that system, I was able to actually capture some metadata and then actually use the import function in Laserfiche to put the documents in. So I had to build a whole separate server that was processing all the documents. So my step one was extract them. They use a secondary software to convert and then import into Laserfiche.
I'm doing it all. I'm using Workflow to pull the metadata in just straight from the old legacy version just because our third party didn't work out. So I guess I'm just concerned about how long it takes to get these 50,000 pages or whatever I have. I'm doing it in chunks, but to get however many pages we have from one system into Laserfiche, that import process takes days, if not weeks.
I did multiple servers, and sometimes I would leave them running overnight.
Yeah,
So I would literally go at home at 5 and hit start, come
Yep.
back the next morning, and it's still
going.
it's still going.
Okay.
But that's why I built different servers that just had that function that was separate from Laserfiche.
Okay.
And it had to do with file size too.
Yeah.
Laserfiche wasn't giving me the good conversion speed because they wanted to keep color.
Right.
And that was a big issue when I was doing the conversion internally with Laserfiche. That it was great for monochrome, but when it came to color, the files were just exploding in size. We found this other tool that was really good at compression, and it helped us with that. That's the reason why we did using us 3 separate servers,
Yep.
doing different databases
Oh.
at different times to kind of let them run 24/7.
I'll let my admin know that. He'll be happy. And then one more question, if I may. How did you, I know with us, we have this old redundant, or this old repository that we used. We have file systems, we have people with stuff on their desktops. How did you get rid of the redundancy in the backlog side of things? Or did you? Or are you working on that?
That we're actually working on that.
Okay.
The hardest one what I did with City Clerk, they had a hard time getting up that Access database. So we got to the point where now they trust the metadata, and I made their Access database read-only.
Okay.
So it was like, what do you mean I can't use my Access database? It was hard to get that buy-in until they started searching. So until people started asking them for records, and they said, okay, let me search here. Oh, wow, it's here. I can find it. So it's them showing them actual examples and it's kind of doing baby steps and just maybe remove or read only, because like with Faz and the cash receipts, he scanned everything, but he says he's going to hold on for just a little longer.
Okay. Yeah, no, I have that. I'm
So-
just concerned that, I'm going to do this migration, then I'm going to scan all the planning files. I'm thinking that maybe 50% of the documents that we're doing in backlog are going to be in there 4 times, the same exact one. So I don't know, did you guys overcome any version control, like on stuff that's in multiple places?
No, not really. Once they gain the trust on the system, they know once they search and they can find it, there's no need to rescan or do it again and again.
Okay, so in backlog, they'll just do
Yeah.
it. If they see the redundancy, then they'd get rid of it or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Go ahead, yeah.
Hello. Hey, you had a slide earlier on major projects and loads of different. I'm making an assumption here. I'm assuming that y'all have purchased third-party applications for a lot of those. You mentioned ERP earlier. Obviously, how a lot of those also have a content management system, often subpar to what Laserfiche is. How were you able to integrate that into, extract it out of ERP and use Laserfiche as the better repository to do those types of searches
So
instead of using the system you bought?
Currently, our ERP system is SunGuard Panimation. Of course, it has their own document imaging system. We still keep it as is, and we use Laserfiche as a supplemental document imaging system for the area that we lack of.
And I'll just add, we're right in the process of doing a contract for a brand new ERP system. So we've looked at the document imaging offering there because it isn't integrated, but as you mentioned, the features aren't as robust. So we're still planning on essentially all the departments except maybe just the financial department when it comes to their invoices and things. It may make sense to keep them in the new system, but everything else we've checked with them. They have a good it's a Tyler product, Munis, so they have a lot of integration with Laserfiche. So we think we'll be able to, within the financial world, finance piece, use Munis, and then connect everything with Laserfiche out to the other departments.
Well, congratulations on your success, but with success often comes more problems. So I'm kind of curious if you could talk about how your traditional role as an IT department has shifted, including kind of records management, and what adjustments you've had to make internally in your department and your organization to get there, if any. And secondly, do you have any, as the projects, as your success builds and there are more projects that are out there within your organization, do you have any criteria or how do you decide what the next project is going to be that you're willing to take on?
Well, we have an urgent problem right now. Of course, Laserfiche is so popular in our organization. Every department wants a piece of it. So we prioritize, like Ivan and I has done a lot of work for City Clerk and CDD. So we give priority to the department that hasn't had any services from us. For example, fire, recreation, finance, stuff like that. That's how we prioritize things.
I'll just add, though, I have to coordinate the resources for the department, and it is a big growth area that we didn't have before. Ivan used to spend a little, maybe a quarter of your time or less in document imaging, and that was all the resources IT had to devote to it. And now it's, mushroomed into this much bigger piece of the pie. So it is a bit of a struggle, but I think we're trying to use, wherever possible, the tools to make it configurable by the user. So we're really trying to empower the user in everything we're pulling out there so that, yes, the back end has to get set up, but then once it's, we've got an easy button on the scanner for a Laserfiche flow, so they do all this inserting, scanning, it shows up in their desktop, they're entering the metadata. So it's, once the setup's done, the department takes on the extra work. So it's really that initial planning and organizing, getting them set up, but the tool's powerful enough that then the departments take on new work that they didn't have. So it's not just an IT resource thing. And so that kind of can help slow down the flow, because it's like, okay, department, you want 48 new services done. We'll set up the first 4, and you may have found out it's adding 4 hours a week to your workload on your end to enter in the metadata. So maybe you don't have 48 anymore because you don't have enough resources on the department end. So we're managing through it, but it is a growth area.
Hi, you showed a page where the public was able to search permits. What was that built on, and how does it interface with Laserfiche?
Oh, that was a custom, you have it on the public portal, you have the advanced search, has all the records. Well, when we looked at it, it's really confusing in the sense that you have all these templates and you're going to know what to do. So we decided to create custom search forms. So I created a custom search form that's for contracts with all their metadata fields. And then we created for every single template that is available to the public, because not all the data is available to the public. So we customized it, said, okay, we have a central landing page. So if they wanted to go to contracts, they click on contracts, take them to the search page, and now they were searching just within contracts. Because we thought opening it up too big is going to be overwhelming, and it's going to go back to our old system. So they do have the advanced search function for some users that want to use it, because we have maybe 3 or 4 users that call us on a regular basis that are more of the advanced, that they'll literally tell us, hey, your OCR is wrong, my name is misspelled. I've gotten that kind of call before.
Well, that custom form, just you submit that back to
Yeah,
Laserfiche?
this already has rights. It goes back to the repository and pulls all the records out.
Gotcha.
Is it WebLink that you
Yes, sorry. It's WebLink, and we just customize the look with the help. And our IT department, we changed the look so where it doesn't look more like Laserfiche. We put in our own colors, our own.
Gotcha.
So that's why it looks totally different, but it's just a web form.
Okay, thank you.
Tell me how much time you spent doing sort of the front-loaded activities, business process mapping, workflow mapping, data classification, role definition. Did you do any of that sort of? A lot of Laserfiche customers have to kind of do a reset after their first crack at it and go back and do a lot of that front-loaded activity.
It's a really good question. We're actually doing a reset right now, because since originally it was only 2 of us, we just said, okay, you go this way and I go that way. And that's how we were doing development. And we actually brought in 2 more people, and then they said, why are you doing this? I'm like, well, I don't know. We just started doing it. But what adding more people to doing the development, we actually are reinventing the process. We're actually doing this currently right now for the fire department. We did such a complicated quick field session that I was even having trouble understanding what I did 5 months ago. I had to literally sit down with one of my coworkers and kind of said, well, I think it does. Hold on, let me look at it again. We actually simplified it where now, if somebody looks at it, it looks really simple. So we're actually doing a reset currently. And we brought in the IT application manager. She kind of, we set up more meetings now and kind of talk about how do we share fields, how do we share templates. Hey, this department wants this. How can we, who can access, is there a database? Can they get data from here? And since we all work in different areas, I come from the operations side, they work on the application side. So we have different specialties. Like I do most of the security. Faz herself, she knows more of all the databases, so we just leverage our knowledge against each other.
Have you been asked to integrate any of this with your like GIS functions?
No, we haven't done any. Have you recall anything that we did with GIS?
All we done with GIS is, oh yeah,
We did. Yes, we did. Sorry, with CDD, of course. I did the database lookup with the GIS system so that whenever you enter metadata, it's an accurate, like, you pull in the street name, and then the next thing you know, it would pull the street number that pertaining to the street name that you just select. So I did a lookup in the GIS system so that we always have accurate information.
Does anything integrate with the mapping itself?
No.
Have you been asked to do that?
No, I don't. We haven't done anything that integrate with the mapping, Ivan.
I think the only function that we've done so far is where if they look at the map, we did a custom search string. So where it codes the variable to that matches a field in one of the documents. So they pull up a certain document and you click on it, it actually takes them to a Laserfiche search string. I don't know if you're familiar with search strings, how you can code all the information on the search string. So as long as you change one variable, it actually will pull up a different document. So we've done that and they're still testing it. Okay. So that's as far as we've gone with GIS.
Hi, I'm Tom with AMI, and we work together on this project. And one of the things that I think stood out is that there were some things pending with the new City Hall and the timeline to get migrated off the old system, that rather than optimize every single use case, the idea was to get as far across as many places as possible, and that might be why there, you could have done things differently in a couple different cases. But my question is, as it relates to the Quick Fields agent, how has that really empowered Newport to automate their functions across the departments?
That's empowered in the sense that on our copiers, I actually set up a Laserfiche button that goes to a network share. And by using the Quick Fields agent, I was able to create all the quick field sessions, point them to all these different shares, depending on what quick field sessions they're running, put it on a scheduled task, and then scan and tell them, okay, just scan your documents, and they're gonna appear in this one location. Because by doing the barcode, we can say, okay, we called it. You go to document indexing, your department, and then the template name. So it helped us in the sense that they can just easily whenever they have 5-10 minutes, do other scans, hit the Laserfiche button. It changes all the settings. It does the TIFF format, it does the black and white, it does everything for them by just one click. So it helps us empower by not having to get more quick fields licenses and having to set up all these computers, having to give them all these sessions. They just worry about their barcode and scanning the document. And that's all they have to do on their end.
Great. Rob, you're okay with that now? Because it's one of the more expensive modules, but the impact, did it return to the city?
Yes. With all our modules, we bought them in phases. We first bought the very basic and said, okay, let's use this. Then we realized, either we actually need this tool, it's gonna help us. So I think it's paid a lot of dividends because the permitting that Faz showed the example, that's using Quick Fields agent. Also the one from the cashiering, that's using Zone OCR and Quick Fields agent because he just walks up to the scanner. So we already found two big cases there where it's become really powerful. Instead of giving him a scanner with quick field session, We just told them go to your copier and scan there, and you're good to go. Uh, w- she's asking about quick fields agent and import agent. What I understand, we don't use import agent, but what I understand about an import agent, that just goes directly into the repository. The quick fields agent, we do it because it runs a quick field session that actually leverage to a network share. That's the reason we use quick fields. We use quick fields agent to monitor network shares on our network. And within that quick field session, it has all the parameters of like, look for this barcode, look for this information, and that's how we're using it. Yes.
Thank you all for attending today. If there are no more questions, you are dismissed, but feel free to stick around and ask some questions.